Imagine you just hit like the absolute biggest milestone of your career.
Right.
Maybe your startup finally went public, or I don't know, maybe that impossibly complex code you've been writing finally compiled flawlessly.
The dream scenario.
Exactly. Or you just landed that promotion you've been chasing for a decade. But statistically speaking, this is the exact moment you are most likely to completely sabotage yourself.
Yeah, it really is. It's the highest point of risk.
Which is wild. But today, we are looking at something that feels like it just shouldn't exist. We're doing a deep dive into a 1,400-year-old 3-line ancient text.
Only 3 lines, yeah.
Just 3 lines.
Yeah.
But it actually contains this flawless, step-by-step psychological debugging protocol designed specifically to prevent you from crashing at the peak of your success.
And, the contrast between the format and the function is really what makes this so compelling.
Oh, absolutely.
Because, we generally keep our modern